Picture this. You're lying down to sleep. Outside, it's negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind howls across a frozen wasteland. Snow piles up relentlessly. You have no house, no electricity, no furnace, no insulated walls, not even a proper blanket as we know it today. How long would you last? Hours, maybe less. Yet 30,000 years ago, entire families didn't just survive nights like this. They thrived through 6-month winters that would kill a modern human in minutes. They raised children. They created art. They built communities. And here's what will blow your mind. They did it with technology so sophisticated that modern Arctic engineers are still learning from it today. So how did our ancestors sleep through the harshest winters in human history without freezing to death? The answer isn't what you think. Forget everything you've seen in movies. Early humans weren't just huddling in cave mouths around pathetic fires, hoping to survive until morning. That's Hollywood nonsense. Archaeological evidence reveals something far more impressive. Our Paleolithic ancestors were master engineers who developed winter survival technologies that would make modern survival experts jealous. From the Mammoth bone megastructures of Ukraine to the thermal engineering marvels of Siberia, these weren't primitive shelters. These were carefully designed, scientifically sound survival systems that could keep families warm through months of brutal cold. Let me show you exactly how they did it. The breakthrough began with one revolutionary realization. When nature tries to kill you, you make nature work for you instead. This single principle guided every aspect of their winter survival strategy. They didn't fight the snow, the wind, or the freezing temperatures. They weaponized them. And it all started underground. At Kostroma in Russia, researchers discovered something extraordinary. Remains of what may be humanity's first engineered cold weather housing, dating back 800,000 years ago. These early Arctic pioneers weren't building on the surface. They were digging down, way down. They excavated circular pits up to 8 feet deep and 12 feet across. But this wasn't random digging. Analysis of tool marks and soil composition proves these depths were deliberately calculated for maximum thermal efficiency. Here's the physics they understood. When you dig 6 to 8 feet below ground, you hit what engineers call the frost line. At this depth, soil temperatures remain relatively stable year-round, consistently 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the surface air. Think about that. Just by digging a hole, they gained 20 to 30 degrees of free heat. No fuel required, no fire needed, just pure geological engineering. But they didn't stop there. At Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, dating to 26,000 years ago, archaeologists uncovered something that shouldn't exist: composite insulation systems that wouldn't be invented again until modern times. These weren't simple animal hide tents. These were multi-layered thermal systems, and each layer had a specific scientific purpose. Layer 1, the inner chamber. Carefully prepared animal hides with fur facing inward. This trapped warm air directly against the occupants' bodies, creating a microclimate around sleeping areas. Layer 2, the moisture management system. Dried grass and moss. This wasn't just padding, it actively wicked moisture away from the interior, preventing the deadly accumulation of condensation. Layer 3, the wind barrier. Woven mats made from reeds and bark created a wind-resistant outer shell, while remaining breathable. This allowed moisture to escape without letting cold air in. This is the same principle used in modern technical outdoor clothing. Base layer, insulation layer, shell layer. They figured it out 26,000 years ago. But the real masterpiece of Ice Age architecture? The Mammoth bone houses. At sites like Merciless and Kostenki in Ukraine and Russia, dating between 25,000 and 15,000 years ago, researchers found structures that completely shattered our understanding of prehistoric capabilities. These weren't huts. These were engineered buildings designed specifically for extreme cold survival. The foundation system? Builders excavated circular or oval depressions 12 to 16 feet in diameter, precisely sized to accommodate extended families of 8 to 12 people. The excavated earth wasn't wasted. It was piled around the perimeter to create protective berms that blocked wind and added thermal mass. The framework? This is where it gets incredible. They used the massive bones of woolly mammoths. Skulls weighing over 200 pounds served as foundation blocks. Curved tusks and long bones created dome-shaped frameworks. Hundreds of smaller bones filled gaps and provided structural support. Here's the fascinating part. Radiocarbon dating shows many of these bones came from long-dead mammoths. They weren't hunting mammoths for building materials, they were systematically collecting bones from natural boneyards. This was planned resource management, not opportunistic scavenging. The covering system? Analysis of preserved organic materials reveals extraordinary textile technology. Thick mammoth hides formed the structural outer layer, sewn together with sinew thread using bone needles. Inside this, layers of smaller pelts from wolves, foxes, and Arctic hares provided additional insulation. The entire system was anchored using a complex network of rawhide laces and bone toggles. This wasn't crude construction. This was precision engineering. Now here's where they really proved their genius: the heating and ventilation systems. The multi-hearth approach. Most mammoth bone houses featured multiple coordinated fire systems. A central hearth provided primary heat, while smaller heating stations around the perimeter created warm zones for specific activities: food preparation, tool making, childcare. The fuel innovation. In treeless steppe environments, they couldn't rely on wood, so they innovated. Chemical analysis of hearth residues shows they processed and prepared mammoth dung, dried grasses, and even bone as fuel. And they engineered these alternative fuels to maximize burn efficiency and heat output. The ventilation breakthrough. This is perhaps the most sophisticated aspect. Modern Arctic engineers know that without proper ventilation, moisture from breathing and cooking creates condensation that freezes and makes shelters uninhabitable. The Paleolithic solution? Carefully designed airflow systems. Small openings near ground level allowed fresh air to enter. Larger openings near the top allowed warm, moisture-laden air to escape. The positioning created natural convection currents that maintained air quality while preserving heat. Some sites even show evidence of adjustable ventilation systems, bone and hide flaps that could be opened or closed depending on conditions. They invented the adjustable vent 25,000 years before modern HVAC systems. Want to know how well this actually worked? Experimental reconstructions of properly built mammoth bone houses have demonstrated they could maintain interior temperatures 40 to 50 degrees warmer than outside air using only modest fires. Read that again: 40 to 50 degrees of temperature difference. If it's negative 40 outside, it's a comfortable 50-60 degrees inside. That's warmer than many modern homes without heating. Modern Arctic shelters, with access to industrial insulation and heating equipment, often perform no better than these Stone Age structures. Archaeological evidence reveals these weren't just survival shelters. They were carefully designed homes with specialized spaces for family life. Sleeping areas were arranged around the central hearth, with the warmest spots reserved for infants and elderly family members. This wasn't sentiment, it was survival strategy. The most vulnerable got the best protection. Tool-making areas were positioned near secondary hearths, where good light and heat were available for detailed work. The natural freezer innovation. In permafrost regions, they learned to use natural freezing as a preservation method. Underground storage chambers connected to winter shelters by short tunnels created natural refrigerators that kept meat fresh throughout winter while remaining accessible during severe storms. The psychological design. Living in enclosed spaces for months could cause serious mental health issues, something modern Arctic researchers know well. Paleolithic builders addressed this by incorporating areas for artistic activities. The famous Venus figurines were often discovered in winter shelter contexts, suggesting long winter months were times for creative expression, not just survival. Experimental archaeology reveals that building a mammoth bone house required 2 to 3 weeks of intensive work by a group of 8 to 10 adults. This means construction had to begin well before winter weather made outdoor work impossible. Analysis of tool wear patterns and seasonal indicators suggest most winter shelters were built during late summer and early autumn. This demonstrates something crucial: sophisticated seasonal planning and future thinking that goes beyond simple survival instincts. The maintenance protocol. Archaeological evidence shows occupants regularly repaired and upgraded structures as winter progressed. Broken bones were replaced, damaged coverings were patched, insulation materials were refreshed. This wasn't reactive maintenance, it was proactive engineering that improved shelter performance over time. Even the end of winter required specialized techniques. Archaeological evidence suggests many winter shelters were deliberately dismantled at season end, with valuable materials cached for reuse the following year. Bone frameworks were often left in place, covered with earth and stones to prevent scavenging, while portable materials like hides and tools were packed for seasonal migration. This was planned obsolescence and resource recovery, concepts we think of as modern innovations. The genius of these systems becomes even more apparent when you look at regional variations. Arctic coastal peoples developed techniques for building on permafrost. Continental steppe dwellers perfected methods for dealing with extreme wind exposure. Mountain peoples created avalanche-resistant designs. Forest edge inhabitants learned to integrate natural windbreaks into their shelter systems. Each environment demanded specific solutions, and Paleolithic peoples engineered them all. Here's something that should make you pause. The knowledge required to build effective winter shelters was extensive and had to be transmitted across generations with perfect accuracy. Mistakes could be fatal. This need for precise knowledge transmission may have contributed to the development of complex teaching methods and cultural practices that ensured survival information was preserved and passed down. In other words, the harsh winters may have helped drive the development of education itself. As climates warmed following the ice ages and forests expanded, the need for extreme cold weather shelters diminished. And here's the tragedy. The knowledge was gradually lost, surviving only in a few Arctic regions where environmental conditions remain challenging. This represents one of the great technological losses in human history. Engineering knowledge that took millennia to develop, forgotten in a few generations. Today, modern Arctic engineers studying these Paleolithic winter shelters have gained new insights into cold weather construction techniques. Military Arctic training programs now teach shelter building methods directly derived from archaeological reconstructions of these designs. Disaster relief organizations have adapted these ancient techniques for emergency shelter construction in extreme environments. We're literally relearning what our ancestors knew 30,000 years ago. The techniques developed for winter survival had profound impacts on human evolution and expansion. The ability to survive harsh winters allowed early humans to colonize vast regions of northern Eurasia that would otherwise have been uninhabitable. This expansion brought access to new resources and hunting grounds, supporting larger populations and accelerating cultural development. Many innovations developed for winter shelter construction found applications in other areas of Paleolithic technology. Composite material techniques were adapted for clothing, tool handles, and hunting equipment. Insulation principles were applied to food storage and protective clothing. The engineering mindset required for winter shelter construction likely contributed to the technological explosion of the Upper Paleolithic period. So let me bring this full circle. The story of Paleolithic winter survival is ultimately a testament to human adaptability and engineering innovation. Faced with environmental conditions that should have been impossible to survive, our ancestors didn't retreat to warmer climates. Instead, they developed technologies that allowed them to thrive in the harshest environments on Earth. When we consider the sophisticated thermal engineering, the complex material processing, the precise construction techniques, and the detailed environmental knowledge required to build these winter shelters, we don't see primitive cave dwellers. We see accomplished Arctic engineers whose innovations laid the groundwork for all subsequent cold weather technologies. The next time you adjust your thermostat or check your home's insulation, remember this. The principles you're relying on were first developed by families living through Ice Age winters with nothing but stone tools and natural materials. Their legacy lives on every time we create warmth and safety in the face of winter's challenge. And that's how humans slept through the Ice Age without freezing to death, not by enduring the cold, but by engineering their way through it.